The exhibition is crowded, but for me, everything fades into the background, the hum of voices, the soft clink of glasses, the light glowing against the artwork. All of it blurs. My eyes are locked on her. Emma. I haven't seen her in months, and yet here she is, standing in front of one of her pieces, eyes filled with something I can't quite place. Hope? Or maybe bitterness? Or maybe both. I can't tell. Her gaze locks with mine, and for a moment I forget how to breathe. I should look away. I should pull my eyes from hers, but my body refuses to move. Instead, it feels like she's pulling me back into something I thought was gone, something I had buried deep. Sophie, are you okay? Sophie's voice pulls me out of the fog. She's standing beside me, her hand resting on my arm, her warmth a stark contrast to the coldness I feel looking at Emma. She's so unaware, so innocent to what's happening inside of me. Yeah, I mutter, my voice sounding more uncertain than I intend. I'm fine. I try to focus on Sophie, but all I can think about is Emma. How her guilt rushes through me. It's suffocating, this knot of emotions tightening in my chest. How could I just walk away from her like I did? After everything we shared, after everything we promised each other. But then, the anger surges. How could she have thought we could go back to that? After everything that happened, after the lies, the silence, the broken promises, the affair, the betrayal. I watch her for a long moment, letting the anger simmer under the surface. It's not just anger at her, though. It's at myself. For not being brave enough to face the consequences when I should have. For running. For not handling it better. Let's just look around, I say, my voice a little too sharp. Sophie looks at me, sensing the tension, but doesn't press. Not yet, anyway. I glance back at Emma. The exhibit isn't just an exhibition. It's a story. Her story. A story of us, of what we were. I never realized it until now. Each painting feels like a direct plea for me to come back, for me to see the pain she's been living with since I left. Every piece on those walls is her reaching out, telling me her side of the story. My stomach turns, a bitter taste in my mouth. I turn to Sophie again, trying to steady myself, but the weight of what I've done feels unbearable. How do I explain this to her? How do I make her understand? You sure you're all right? Sophie asks again, her voice gentle, but I can hear the hesitation in it. She knows something is off, but she doesn't know what. I'm fine, Sophie. I force out, though it sounds hollow. Really? But as I watch Emma standing alone near the next piece, I realize something that hits me like a wave. These exhibitions weren't just her way of moving on. They were a desperate attempt to find me again. She was never looking for closure. She was looking for me, and I didn't give her that. I just left. I can feel the guilt creeping in, mixing with the anger and the sadness. It's suffocating, and I want to escape it, but I can't. I want to look away. I want to forget what's happening here, to forget that I'm standing next to Sophie, lying to her about what's really going on inside me. But my gaze keeps drifting back to Emma. She's standing there. I remember the breakup. It's like I'm reliving it all over again, and the memories hit like they always do. Sharp, raw, painful. The fight, the lies, the affair I couldn't hide, the hurt I couldn't erase. Emma had trusted me, and I betrayed that trust. I made that choice to leave, to run. I thought it was the only way to get away from the mess we'd become, but now, seeing her here, it all feels unfinished. Sophie says again, her voice low. Her hand tightens around mine. I look at her concern, and for the first time tonight, I feel like I'm betraying her too. I can't look away from Emma, though. I can't stop thinking about what I've done. The moment is stretched thin, like a rubber band ready to snap. Emma's eyes meet mine again, and for a fleeting second I see it. An unspoken understanding, a wordless question. It's like she's waiting for me to say something, to explain, but I don't know how to. The room feels too small, the air too thick, the tension unbearable. Sophie shifts beside me, looking between me and Emma. She doesn't say anything, but I'm sorry, I hear myself whisper, but I don't even know who I'm apologizing to. Emma? Sophie? Both? Before I can say more, Emma opens her mouth, but the words get lost in the noise around us. And then I feel it. The world shifts. Sophie's grip on my hand tightens. And I know we've reached a point where I can't keep hiding the truth. The weight of the past is too heavy now. I can't keep pretending I don't feel the pull between what I've done and who I've become. The silence stretches. And it feels like every choice I've made, every mistake has led me here to this moment where I can't run from either of them anymore. I'm caught, frozen, stuck between the past and the present, unsure where to go next. But I know one thing for sure, the truth can't stay hidden any longer, and the room with all its chaos and noise seems to close in on me. I've been standing in front of this gallery for what feels like hours, staring at the door like it holds the answers to everything I'm trying to avoid. Sophie's beside me, her hand resting lightly on my arm, but it feels like she's a world away. I wish I could focus on her, on the life we've been building. I still see her in my sleep, her face twisted in pain and confusion, the way she looked when I walked out without a word, the way she clung to me in the moments before everything fell apart. God, I should have stayed. I should have fought for us. But instead I ran, and now all I have left is guilt, gnawing at me, reminding me that I was the one who walked away. Sophie's voice snaps me out of my thoughts. Sam, what's going on? Her tone is gentle, but I can hear the concern in it. You've been quiet all night. I thought we were here to enjoy this. I force a smile, though it feels more like a mask than anything genuine. I'm just trying to figure something out. You know me, always overthinking. She doesn't buy it. I can tell by the way her brows furrow. This isn't like you. You're not yourself, Sam. I want to tell her. I want to tell her everything about Emma, about the way I feel trapped between my past and my present. But how do I explain it? How do I tell her I'm still tied to someone else emotionally when I should be focused? I glance over at Emma's latest exhibit and the familiar pang of guilt surges. Each painting, each sculpture feels like a personal accusation. She's been telling the world our story, our love, our fights, the things we never said. Her art isn't about the world. It's a cry for me, an invitation for me to come back. And it hits me hard how far she's going to find me. The exhibits aren't just showcases. They're an Sophie leans in closer, her voice soft. Sam, are you sure everything's okay? You're not acting like yourself. I swallow hard, trying to mask the turmoil inside me. I'm fine, really, but the words feel hollow. The truth is, I don't know if I'm fine. I don't know what I am anymore. And then it hits me. The art, the shows, the years of trying to get me to come back. None of it was just for closure. Emma didn't want closure. She wanted me back. I was never just a chapter to her. I was the story. The guilt that has been building for months crashes over me, the weight of everything I've done. I've left her behind. I left her to try and rebuild herself from the wreckage of what we were. And now, I'm standing here, watching the remnants of our love displayed for the world to see, unable to escape it. Sophie's voice cuts through the haze. Sam, talk to me, please. You're scaring me. Her grip on my hand tightens, her concern palpable. I look down at our joined hands, feeling the stark contrast between her warmth and the chill running through me. Her eyes search mine, confusion and hurt mixing on her face. What's going on, Sam? You've been distant for weeks, but now it's like you're a million miles away. If there's something you need to say, you need to tell me. This isn't just about the show, is it? I want to tell her everything. I want to tell her about Emma's obsession, about how I've been avoiding the past instead of facing it. But the fear of losing Sophie is too much. It's nothing, I lie, my voice strained. I promise. I know she doesn't believe me. I can feel it. But she doesn't press. Not yet. Instead, we walk through the exhibit, and every piece of art feels like a punch to my gut. Each one is a reminder of what I abandoned, of the love I threw away. And the more I look, the more I realize just how deep Emma's obsession with me really goes. One was on the floor of the gym, and that was the first time I realized just how deep Emma's obsession with me really goes. She wasn't just exhibiting art, she was exhibiting her heart, her pain, her desperate hope that I'd come back and pick up the pieces. My phone buzzes in my pocket and I nearly jump. Sophie looks at me, waiting for me to check it, but I just leave it there. I When we reach the final piece, I freeze. The colors are a blur, but I know what I'm seeing, an image of us, me and Emma, wrapped in an embrace that's half love and half anguish. I can almost hear the argument that ended it all, the harsh words we threw at each other, the betrayal that shattered everything. It's a perfect representation of what we were. And the more I stare at it, the more I realize Emma's search wasn't for closure, it was for me. She wanted me back. I can feel my pulse quicken, the realization dawning on me like a wave crashing over me. She's never stopped searching for me. And I'm here, with Sophie, caught between. But I don't know what to do next. And as I stand there, facing the wreckage of my past, the door to the final exhibition seems like the only way out. But I can't go back, and I can't move forward. I stand there, frozen, torn between the life I built and the life I left behind, and for the first time in months, I don't know who I am anymore. I stood at the entrance of the gallery, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone around me could hear it. The air was thick with the weight of years of silence, a fragile tension that had followed me since I left Emma behind. This exhibition, her final one, was supposed to be a goodbye, a release, and yet all I felt was the pull of the past, dragging me back like a tide I couldn't outrun. It had been years since I saw her, but everything about this moment felt too familiar. I wasn't prepared for the sight of her, not after everything. Emma stood in the center of the room, framed by her art. Her eyes found me almost immediately, and for a moment, I thought I might collapse under the intensity of her gaze. Her eyes flickered as if she was seeing something she had been waiting for, something she could never have. The sight of her brought a flood of emotions, the kind I hadn't known how to deal with before. Sam, her voice broke through the noise of my thoughts, and I could barely breathe. You came. I nodded, trying to steady myself, but my legs felt weak. I couldn't stay away. Not after everything. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Everything was a lie. The distance between us felt like a universe, and yet here we were. She had made this moment, made all of this a part of her mission. I knew she had been waiting for this, but could I even make it right? She crossed the room to me, her steps deliberate, every movement betraying how much she wanted this conversation. Why didn't you reach out to me? Why'd you let me search the world for you? Her words were sharp, and they I felt her pain like a physical force. It was overwhelming, the rawness of it, the loneliness she must have endured. I didn't. I couldn't, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I was selfish. I didn't know how to fix it. I thought walking away was the only way to stop hurting both of us. Her face twisted in a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. You thought leaving was the answer? The only answer? Her voice cracked, but she held herself together. I was broken, Sam, and you left me. I wanted to reach out, to pull her into my arms and take it all back, but I knew it wasn't that simple. It could never be that simple. I didn't think I could love you the way you wanted me to, but leaving you was a mistake. She shook her head, and the tears in her eyes were nothing compared to the coldness in her voice. You still don't get it, do you? It wasn't about your love. It was about us, about what we could have been, about a future we were supposed to have. The exhibitions weren't about the art. It was about you. Every gallery, every painting was a piece of my heart. I poured everything into those shows, hoping it would bring you back. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks, and I staggered back, almost physically stunned. She hadn't been trying to showcase her art. She had been trying to find me, to rebuild something she thought we could have had. She funded those exhibitions with money we had once promised each other would be for something we could share, something meaningful. But she had turned them into a desperate attempt to reclaim what she had lost, what I had taken from her. I didn't know, I whispered, my throat closing up. I didn't know it was like that for you." She let out a bitter laugh, though it was filled with a deep pain that I couldn't ignore. "The exhibitions made love. Of course you didn't. You were too busy running from your own guilt. You couldn't even see how far I was willing to go for us. For you." I felt my stomach drop. The guilt was suffocating now, but there was no escaping it. I had abandoned her. I had left her in the wake of a broken promise, a shattered future. But as much as I wanted to apologize, as much as I wanted to make it right, um, I can't change what happened, I admitted. I made mistakes. I was selfish, and I can't undo it, but I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between us, a weight that neither of us could lift. And then, just as I thought the worst was over, she dropped a bombshell that shattered everything I thought I understood. "I knew about Sophie," Emma said, her words cold and calculated. "I saw her long before you did. I watched you move on with her while I was still trying to find you." Her lips curled into a twisted smile. "The exhibitions? They weren't just about finding you. They were about proving to myself that I still had control over our fate, over you." I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was spinning and I couldn't hold on to anything. I thought I understood Emma, thought I had figured her out. But this was something I hadn't expected. "You?" My voice was hoarse. "You've been watching me all this time? All these years?" She nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. I needed to know. And just like that, I understood. It wasn't love that had kept her searching. It was possession. It was the need to control a past that she couldn't let go of, a past that had no place in my future. The realization hit me like a wave, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The weight of Emma's obsession lifted, and I finally saw her for who she was. Not the woman I had loved, but the woman I had run from. The woman who had turned her love into an unhealthy fixation, a desperate need to reclaim something she had lost. And for the first time, I didn't feel the pull to go back to her. "Emma," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You've been holding on to a ghost." The truth was bitter, but it set me free. I wasn't the answer to her pain. I was just a part of it. And I wasn't responsible for healing what had been broken long before I walked away. "I need to go," I said, my voice steadying as I took a step back. "I'm sorry for everything, but it's over." Her face crumpled, the hope fading from her eyes. There was no closure, no reconciliation, no easy goodbye. But for the first time, I understood the truth. I turned away, walking out of the gallery, the past finally behind me. I felt lighter with each step, but the future felt clearer. Sophie was waiting for me. The past was over, and this time, I wouldn't let guilt or ghosts pull me back. I was moving forward. I sat in the quiet of the living room, the weight of the past pressing down on me like 1,000 bricks. Emma's face still lingered in my mind, those painful words still echoing in my ears. The truth had come out. Finally. And it had shattered everything. Now, I was left to face the woman who had always been there, Sophie, the woman who had stood by me even when she had no idea who I truly was. I had to come clean. There was no escaping it, no hiding from what I had done. Sophie deserved more than a half-truth. She deserved the whole story, no matter how much it scared me to say it aloud. I could feel my pulse quickening as I watched her sitting across from me on the couch, her eyes watching me closely. I knew the question was there, waiting, but the longer I hesitated, the more I felt like I was losing her, inch by inch. "Sophie?" I began. She furrowed her brow but didn't interrupt. The silence between us was thick, and I could feel the room closing in on me. "I had an affair with Emma," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I know this is the last thing you should hear from me, but I can't keep lying to you. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake." The words hung in the air like poison. Sophie's face was still, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw tightened. She wasn't surprised, but that didn't make it hurt any less. "Why didn't you tell me before?" she asked, her voice low, barely above a whisper. Why did you let me love you without knowing? I was scared, I confessed, my voice cracking. I thought if I told you it would destroy everything, but hiding it was worse. I was selfish. I was afraid of losing you, but now I'm afraid of losing everything. Sophie's eyes softened, though the hurt was still there, a deep wound that was raw and open. She didn't speak right away, just let my words settle between us. When she did finally look at me, her gaze— I don't know how to process this, Sophie said quietly, but I'm glad you told me. I can't promise it's going to be easy, but I want to try. I want to believe you, Sam. I really do. I felt a rush of relief and guilt at the same time. The weight had been lifted, but only a little. Thank you, I whispered. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll do whatever it takes to earn it. She nodded, taking a deep breath, but I'm not asking for perfection, just honesty and time. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but we could work through it. The road ahead would be long, but if we both put in the effort, maybe we could find our way back to each other. The day Emma closed the chapter on her obsession with me was the day I realized just how much weight I had been carrying all these years. I hadn't been able to understand it until now. The way she had controlled everything, manipulated the situation to make it seem like I was the answer to all her problems. But when she finally admitted that she had known about Sophie, that she had been watching from the sidelines, I couldn't look at her the same way again. Just the quiet recognition in her eyes that she had to let go. She was tired. Tired of chasing a love that no longer existed. Tired of searching for something she would never find. I'm done, Sam, Emma said one final time, her voice almost flat. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending that I'm going to find you again. I need to stop. I nodded, unable to say anything more. This was it. The end of a chapter had been a part of her life, but I wasn't meant to stay in it. Not anymore. I saw the sadness in her eyes, but there was also something else, a quiet relief. Maybe she was finally going to heal. Maybe she was finally going to move on, just like I had to. She didn't look back when she walked away. I didn't either. Sophie and I walked out of the gallery hand in hand, the weight of everything slowly lifting. We had been through so much, and yet, as I looked at her, I saw something new, something hopeful. We had faced the truth, the betrayal, the hurt, and we were still here, still. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the pasts that had haunted me, free from the mistakes I couldn't undo. And I realized that the redemption I had been searching for wasn't about making things right with Emma. It was about making things right with myself. It was about accepting who I was, who I had been, and who I wanted to become. And most importantly, it was about trusting Sophie again, trusting that we could rebuild what had been broken. The sun was setting as we walked, casting a warm glow on everything around us. We didn't need to say anything. The quiet spoke for us. The peace I felt in that moment was more than I could have ever hoped for. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic apologies. It was about the simple act of moving forward together. As we made our way through the exhibition one last time, my eyes landed on a painting at the far end of the room. It was a portrait, a raw, vulnerable image of me. But it wasn't just me. It was the me I used to be. The one caught between two loves, between two lives. The one who had been lost in the past, unsure of where to go. But now, looking at it, I saw something different. The pain, the mistakes, the love, the heartbreak, and in that moment I realized something. I had let go. I had finally accepted that part of me, and it no longer controlled my future. The portrait was beautiful in its own way, but it was no longer my story. It was Emma's. And it was time for both of us to stop searching for what we couldn't have. I turned to Sophie, her hand still tightly wrapped in mine. Let's go, I said quietly, a new sense of peace settling in my chest. It's over. Sophie smiled softly. Yeah, it is. And with that, we walked out of the gallery, leaving the past behind us. We didn't need